Hey guys, you're probably here because you want to know all about overeating and how you can stop overeating. Well, I'm going to answer that question along with many other questions in this week's Responding to Your Comments, where we look at fun questions, we look at science-based questions, but most importantly, we always look at the evidence. Kate Amani 55. My problem is overeating and struggling to stop. Can you please do a video on this? Kate Amani, thank you for your comment. This is from the How to Lose Weight video. If any of you guys haven't seen it, I will leave it up here. And of course I can do a video on this topic. I'm going to give you as much information as I possibly can. And I'm also going to make you aware of when you should actually seek medical attention for this. I will also leave a timestamp in the description below. I think this is quite helpful if you're trying to find some sort of specific information, because this is going to be quite a long video. So what we're waiting for, let's dive in. So let's begin with tip number 1. Eat slowly. This is probably one of the most important things that you can do if you're an overeater. Look, it takes a bit of time for your brain to realize that it's starting to get full of food, okay? You've got two kind of receptors that are going on. We've got one which is a stretch receptor, so when the stomach starts to stretch, it sends a signal via the vagus nerve to the brain to tell it that you're starting to get food in there. And secondly, you have your blood glucose levels, which slowly start to increase as well, and it gets to the brain via a signal again, which takes about 20 minutes. So if you're someone that's eating super duper fast and you're getting all that food in, then you're going to be overeating, right? But if you're someone that eats slowly, enjoys their food, and takes time chewing their food properly, you're not going to get as much food in there, and by then, your brain's going to understand that you actually got food in there, and it's going to make you feel full sort of sooner before you've had loads of food. Okay, moving on nicely to tip number 2. Avoid distractions so that your brain can process signals from chemicals such as ghrelin, leptin and CCK. Now I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, Abraham, I don't know what these things are, but I'm going to tell you, don't worry, I'm going to give you a quick summary. So ghrelin is what makes us hungry, and also it causes the food to be sort of stored for energy in fat cells. Then we have, as we get full basically, we release leptin, and also release CCK from your intestines. These kind of tell the brain to stop. Look, we're getting full, you need to stop eating, okay? So these kind of signals go to the brain. But if you're having loads of distractions like your phone or the TV or your laptop out and all this sort of stuff, it's not gonna let your brain process all these signals fully. So by really fully appreciating the scenario and situation that you're in, so smelling the food, tasting the food, all these things, it's going to suddenly cause this process of signaling to the brain sooner, so hopefully you will feel full sooner as well. Okay, I hope you're still with me. I think we're making some good progress now. Let's move on to tip number 3. It's all about planning your meals in advance. Look, if you're someone who doesn't plan your meals in advance and you have that ghrelin hunger strike that we've just spoke about, you're going to do what everyone does. You're going to reach for the closest thing that's near to you and you're going to eat it, okay? And this is what's going to cause the overeating as well. So if you have a planned meal in mind, you're going to avoid that ghrelin hunger strike. You've got a planned meal, you know when your next meal is coming, and you're not going to be eating everything that's around you during that ghrelin hunger strike. Now this links nicely to tip number 4. By having something to eat, you're going to remove the stress which is caused by not knowing what you're going to eat. And what happens when you're stressed? When you're stressed, you tend to overeat, and when you eat, you get a dopamine kick. When you get that dopamine kick, it's going to make you feel good. Hence, this cycle, this endless cycle of stress and overeating begins, because your brain then knows that when I'm stressed, I get this food and I get this dopamine kick and I feel great. So this is something which tip number 3 is going to help with tip number 4. Also with stress, it's important to remember that we also release cortisol. Now cortisol increases our appetite, so we're going to be more hungry, we're going to want to eat more. So please also remember, you need to have some stress relaxation techniques up your sleeve as well, okay? So you need to make sure you practice them and you're good at them to help reduce your stress levels. Now if you don't have these relaxation techniques, okay, I do have a few videos on these and I will leave a link to it up here and in the description below. Moving on to tip number 5, you need to portion your foods. Look, remember how we said right at the start how it takes about 20 minutes for that signal to be received with your brain, so then you feel full, okay? If you're someone who puts loads of food on their plate and you're going to quickly eat all of that, then you might not get to that 20-minute stage. So a really good technique to incorporate to reduce overeating is portion size. Put a normal portion size, which isn't too much on your plate, and aim to finish that. If you put loads on, you're probably more likely to eat everything on the plate, which then tends to be overeating. Now this links nicely onto tip number 6, which is all about fiber. You should be incorporating fiber in your diet. The British Heart Foundation recommends that we have 30 grams of fiber a day. That's 10 grams per meal. And fiber is a carbohydrate which takes a long time to digest. So it stays in your gut for a while and it gives you that sense of fullness for longer, and it also has loads of health benefits. Now if you're worried, if you're wondering where the fiber comes from, what sort of foods to eat for fiber, I will leave more information about it in the description below. Which links us on nicely to tip number 7, proteins. Proteins and fiber go really well together, and proteins have actually been shown to help reduce the hunger strike the most. Now certain foods have both protein and fiber in them. So for example, beans and lentils, you might have them as a snack, you might have them as a meal, but they've got high fiber and protein in them. But also remember, it's important when you have meals that are protein, so for example fish or meat, you always have a handful of vegetables or salad or whatever on the side, and that is your fiber element. Moving on to tip number 8, but what about fats? We haven't discussed them. Well, foods that are high in fats have been shown to increase your appetite and make you want to eat more, which is why it's super important that you have foods that are low in fat, or if you are going to have high fat foods, only have a little bit of them, but just make sure you try and avoid them the most you can, because they will increase your appetite and link to overeating. And this is also true for foods that are high in sugars. Look, when you have foods that are high in sugars, for example, sweets and biscuits and stuff like that, they've got loads of sugar but zero fiber. So what happens? Your insulin spikes and then it drops, and then you feel unsatisfied and you feel tired and you feel hungry again quicker. Unlike fiber and proteins, which last longer and make you feel full for longer and don't increase your appetite either. So high fat foods and high sugary foods, you really need to avoid these. Tip number 9, you need to avoid snacking in between meals. You can do your meal plan throughout the day however you like it. So either 3 large meals a day or 5 small meals a day, okay? But you need to avoid snacking in between them. If you're gonna be snacking, you're just gonna be adding to those calories and you're gonna be adding to the fact that you're overeating. Moving on to tip number 10, have regular meals. If you're someone who doesn't have regular meals, you're gonna be more at risk of having snacks and you're going to be more at risk of overeating. So have regular meals, avoid snacking, and have foods that are high in fiber and proteins, and just stick to the portion size that we spoke about. Now if you are someone who's wanting to lose weight, if you're interested in losing weight, I did make a few videos on this not long ago, all about a study done in Oxford. It's all science-based. If you haven't seen it, I will leave a link to it up here and in the description below, and I hope you find it helpful. The next thing I'd like to discuss is tip number 11, which is all to do with sleep. You need to make sure that you're getting a good quality amount of sleep. So if you're an adult, you need to make sure that you're getting 8 hours of good quality sleep per night. Research has shown that if you're not sleeping enough, you're at risk of becoming overweight, so you're at risk of putting on more weight. And also, if you're not getting enough sleep, you've got increased levels of cortisol. Remember cortisol, we spoke about it earlier. Cortisol is going to increase your appetite. You're going to want to eat more. You're going to want to snack more. You're going to be overeating more. So overall, it's going to be putting on weight. So you need to make sure you get an adequate amount of sleep. And now I'm going to link it to another video, even though that's not my intention of these videos, but I do have a video on how to sleep, how to get good quality sleep. If you haven't seen it, I will leave a link to it up here and in the description below too. Moving on to tip number 12, drink water. Water has 0 calories, but the best thing about it is, do you remember tip number 1 when we were talking about the stretching of the stomach and the vagus nerve? Well, water's gonna do that for you for free with 0 calories, okay? So by drinking water throughout the day, whenever you're feeling hungry, whenever you usually have a snack, you can have a sip of water or something like that. And it's going to cause your stomach to get larger, to stretch, and that stretch is going to make you feel full without the calories, without the overeating. So please do not underestimate the power of water. Now, as I mentioned at the start of this video, there are certain scenarios that you need to be aware of for when to seek medical attention about overeating. So I think the best way to do this now is just to run through them, but please remember, I will leave more information on each one of these points in the description below as well too. So if you want more information, just give it a click and look in the description below. So number 1, if you ever get any pain in your tummy region after eating or before eating, any kind of heartburn, indigestion symptoms, you need to speak to your healthcare professional for more advice. Secondly, if you ever feel like you want to throw up after eating or you are throwing up after eating, this requires medical attention quite urgently because it puts you at risk of not absorbing the food and the nutrients that are in there. And also, it can make you really weak and cause growing problems and various different problems. So this really needs addressing to by speaking to your healthcare professional. The third thing I want to mention is when you're eating too much and you're feeling guilty about it as well. Now, there may be reasons as to why you're feeling that way as well, but if you are feeling like that, please do speak to your healthcare professional about it. They have your best interest in heart, and it's something that really does need looking into, so definitely speak to a healthcare professional about this, please. The fourth thing I want to discuss is weight loss. Look, if you're losing weight and you're not trying to lose weight, you're not under any diet, and you're having a healthy, balanced diet, but you're still losing weight and you feel like your clothes are getting looser and looser on you, this needs looking at. You need to speak to your healthcare professional about it. And another thing as well to mention is this, is any difficulty swallowing. If you're having any difficulty swallowing at all, this again needs speaking to your healthcare professional about. And lastly, weight gain. If you're constantly putting on weight, no matter what you're doing, you're still putting on weight and you're really struggling to lose it, then definitely speak to your healthcare professional about it for extra support. There is also a BMI calculator which is really useful to look at to see your weight status. I will leave a link to it in the description below. It's really easy to use. You just put your weight and height and gender in it, and it calculates it and tells you sort of what weight category you're in and how healthy this is. So I definitely recommend you do check that out. So it looks like we've run out of time again in this week's responding to your comments. If I didn't get back to your comment, I'm really sorry. We are getting so many comments these days, it's very easy to miss them. So the best advice that I can give you is keep on leaving those comments. Leave a comment on this video, on the next video I do, whichever video you find, leave a comment, and I promise you, eventually I will get back to you. That's the end of this week's video. Always remember you're awesome, and I will see you next week. Hey guys, thanks for watching this week's video. Make sure to click that like, follow, or subscribe button now to stay up to date with new weekly videos.